Hello, BookTube. I've got a little bit of mail for you today on a bright, chilly Friday that is right on the razor edge temperature-wise. One of those days that when you're walking around, when you're moving around, you're taking out the garbage or you're walking the dog or whatnot, you're thinking, oh, this isn't so bad. Light windbreaker, this is not bad. But the level of cold is just at the razor blade so that if you stop moving even at all, you start to get really cold. It's a beautiful, beautiful day, though. And we have some mail to go through, so we'll see. I'm dropping the ball on mail on this channel, but I'll try my best always to remember to pick up the slack. Like for instance, we have the Martha's Vineyard Gazette right here, big broadsheet newspaper from the island of Martha's Vineyard. What have we got on the cover here? One of the things I love about the cover is that up over the fold we have gorgeous black and white digital photography. Now, the Gazette knows perfectly well. They could easily do this in color. But there's an old-fashioned beauty to doing these beautiful old black and white original photos. This isn't anywhere else. And I think this issue of the Gazette, I'm pretty sure this got to me, this probably came off the presses too late for front page news, Vineyard front page news, which just happened. There was an armed robbery. I think that, yeah, this is no mention of it, so this is probably too late for that. That'll be in the next one. There was an armed robbery where, you know, the gang, the guns, the note, the tying up of the tellers, the whole 9 yards. And I don't think the suspects are caught, even as today, so we'll have to see. But really, it's the news that stays news. It's all outdoors, bird news, and of course the Vineyard Gardener. These columns at the back really are delightful. They are the reason why so many people read. And these also are completely original photographs. Those are not taken off the wire from somewhere else. It's one of the glories of the Gazette. Then what else do we have for periodicals? Okay, so yes, we have the New Yorker with a cover. There is a Republican elephant attempting to surf the red wave, but it didn't really materialize. And this thing had a few highlights for me. You might remember the New Yorker has a new TV critic, Inku Kang, and we haven't agreed on a few columns, but I have no idea whether Inku is male or female. I have no idea. But this time around was about a sort of a summary of the last few seasons of The Crown, and I thought it was quite good. I had a feeling that I would get along with this author if Inku would write about something that I like or that I'm interested in. And Margaret Talbot does a long review of that new biography, G-Man, of J. Edgar Hoover. It had a little bit too much exposition in it for me, but other than that, I liked it. And Roz Chast, who's one of my favorite living New Yorker cartoonists, did a cartoon that is so simple and yet so true. It's November. It's only 4:15 and it's pitch dark. Something is amiss. It's the end of the world. With a horror font for November. That really struck me. But the funniest thing in this issue, by far, was in the letters column. Now, I tried reading this out loud because I thought I was going to read it to you, and I tried reading out loud and just cracked up so many times that I couldn't finish reading it. But I feel fairly certain that I am composed enough to read this to the end. This is this is a letter from a professor emeritus of the classics who's writing about David Remnick's recent article on Bob Dylan. David Remnick's article about Bob Dylan provides an incisive examination of Dylan's career, his influences, and how he has managed to remain inventive. I'd like to expand upon his mention of an important literary influence on Dylan's music, ancient Greek and Roman poets. There are echoes of many classical poets, especially Homer, Catullus, Virgil, Horace, and Ovid in Dylan's songs, especially them. But of course, there are plenty of others too. Calixtus, Dylan reads Calixtus all the time, on his nightbed all the time. He devoted a section of his Nobel lecture to his appreciation of Homer's Odyssey, drawing on comparison of Odysseus' experiences and his own. Quote,
In a lot of ways, some of the same things have happened to you, he said.
This influence is explored in more detail in the book Why Bob Dylan Matters by the Harvard classicist and Dylanologist Richard Thomas, who considers classical poems alongside important moments in Dylan's life in an illuminating way. Now there, I got through the whole thing without just howling in laughter. I didn't think that professors emeriti of the classics had that kind of sense of humor, but I'm very happy to find out that I was wrong. Absolutely hilarious. And then we have the latest issue of Vanity Fair, where I'm told that Margot Robbie conquers all. But it wasn't Margot Robbie that really interested in me here. Instead, it was a little feature, I think it was towards the beginning of this thing, about books. It isn't a big feature about books. Vanity Fair knows that only losers read books, so they don't spend much time on it. But they like to keep a little oar in the water. And they had a little feature on, I guess, books that have come to their attention, books that are new-ish to them. I don't think it was their typical. They usually have a microscopic blink and you miss it books recommendation section, and I don't think this was that. I think this was more along the lines of new releases. Yes, Wordsworth. The piece is by Keziah Weir, and here it is. It's just a collection of books, I guess, of the season. Brand new novels, nonfiction, and all things in between to satisfy every reading urge, but no real. There's just a paragraph, a little sentence, really, for each book. So no real extolling of anything. And I looked at these automatically to see which ones I might have read. And I was happy to see, well, let's see here. There isn't much that's any good, I should say. There isn't much that's any good on this page. But I was happy to see that volume. I don't know if you can make it out. A Private Spy. It's a big collection of letters by John le Carré that's coming out in December, I believe. And it's quite good. It got a lot of press in the UK when it came out. Lots and lots of people writing about it and making all sorts of really interesting pieces about it. But I guess I wasn't really expecting that it would be out in America, and it is coming out, and I've read it already. I can't wait to get the hardcover and read it, pencil in hand. It was really, really effective. It moved me a lot more than I was expecting a collection of author letters to move me. But there's also a little thing here called The Court, a short piece by Douglas Brinkley about William O. Douglas, the Supreme Court Justice William O. Douglas, who we saw on this channel years ago. I got a copy at the Brattle of a big biography of his, Wild Bill, and had a blast rereading it. I cannot for the life of me find it. I might have sent it to one of you. But here he is with Robert Kennedy. He was an avid outdoorsman. He wrote had ghostwritten for him a number of books. He was always writing books. But one of the books that I think he wrote himself, East to Katahdin, is very good. It's a very good book. And I don't know if usually an article like this betokens that the author has a book coming out. I'll have to check and see if there was a Justice Douglas book that I missed that's either by Brinkley or by a friend of his. But I don't recall having seen one, and I don't want to miss such a thing. I don't want to miss a Supreme Court biography like that. But then we have the mail itself. With one box here and a bunch of packages. I'm glad for the bunch of packages, but I'm very distressed that the packages are so wee. They are so small that doesn't bode well. Steve likes big, fat things. Let's see if any of these can surprise me. Okay, this first one, oh boy. All right, well, I don't... this comes out as a paperback original in March. It's called Dead Country, Book 1 of the Craft Wars trilogy by Max Gladstone, who I love. I just think he's almost never written a book that I didn't love. Fantastic. So what do we got here? Since her village chased her out with pitchforks, Tara Abernathy has resurrected gods, pulled down monsters, averted wars, and saved a city twice. She thought she'd left her dusty little hometown forever, but that was before her father died. As she makes her way home to bury him, she finds a girl as powerful and vulnerable and lost as she once was. Saving her from raiders twisted by the God Wars, Tara changes the course of the world. This is the first book in the Craft War series, a tight sequence of novels that will bring a sprawling saga of the craft to its end, and the perfect entry point to this incomparable world. And I've read a number of these craft novels. I don't know that I'm up enough on them to dive right into this. We'll have to see. We're listed. We have listed for us the craft books. Number 1 is 3 Parts Dead, which was great. Number 2 was Two Serpents Rise, which is my favorite, the best one I think of the series so far. Then 3 is Full Fathom 5. 4 is Last First Snow, which is also really, really good. And 5 is Four Roads Cross, and 6 is Envy of Angels. I don't think I read Four Roads Cross, and I know that I didn't read Envy of Angels. I don't think I did. These titles are a little bit on the generic side, so I could be wrong. But this, what have we got here? Yeah, this comes out in March. So new science fiction fantasy. I don't know what you would actually call the Craft series, but boy, oh boy, are they good. Oh boy. All right, so that's one. Let's go on here. This thing is it's wafer thin. What can it possibly be? It is to me, isn't it? Yes, it is. Maybe a catalog, but all the catalogs are online now. They're all electronic. It's probably a slim volume of poetry. Let's see what we have here. Yes, it's a slim volume of poetry. It comes out in February. Okay, this is True Life. It's a collection of poems by Adam Zagajewski, translated by Claire Cavanaugh. Tiny little thing. Tiny. Adam Zagajewski died in 2021. And again, we have the problem with pub sheets for collections, for volumes of poetry, is that nobody knows what to say about these things at all. And this is just going to be nonsense. He was a poet of fleeting things, of the experience of transience and memory's mission to valiantly fail in counteracting the passage of time. See, I have no idea what that means, neither do you. So there's no sense reading the pub sheet. There's a very slim volume of poetry, translated poetry, coming our way in February. I wonder if these are all going to be advanced copies. None of them is very big. And there's only one box, and the box isn't very big. Let's take a look and see. This next one is... Okay, this is also 2023. This is by Roxana Asgharian, and it is We Were Once a Family, a story of love and death and child removal in America. Oh God, I want to block the baby. What have we got here? In the tradition of deeply reported books such as Adrienne Nicole LeBlanc's Random Family and Andrea Elliott's Invisible Child, We Were Once a Family is a harrowing story of the Hart family murder-suicide, a crime that took place on the Northern California coast in 2018 when 2 mothers drove themselves and their 6 adopted children off a cliff into the Pacific. I seem to remember that. While this book is in part a page-turning true crime narrative, the primary goal in writing this book was to uncover the stories of the birth families of these 6 black children from Texas and their encounters with the deeply flawed child welfare system that would lead to their adoption by this couple, who would go on to abuse them, ultimately ending in the heartbreaking events of March 2018. Okay. All right, well, no details about the author. Is a Houston-based journalist who writes about child welfare and criminal justice systems. Her work has appeared in the Washington Post, the New York Magazine, Texas Monthly, among other publications. She received the 2022 Andrew J. Lukatz Work in Progress Award for We Were Once a Family. Okay, great. That sounds fascinating. I want to know the details of that story. I vaguely remember it when it was in the news. My only problem is that it wasn't a corrupt child welfare system, and it also wasn't white people, just white people in general, that drove those kids off a cliff. Right. I'm hoping that this author sees that clearly and writes writes it that way. I did not kill those children. White people, whiteness, racism did not kill those children. Two crazy people did. But I'm sure that those two crazy people were aided and abetted by an iniquitous and corrupt system. I'd love to hear about it. I shouldn't even mention it. I get my back up just a little with books like this because I've been burned so many times in 2022 by books that told a story, did all sorts of original research, and then the big reveal in chapter 14 is that I'm the villain. And I really, really don't want to read another one of those books as long as I live. But I'm not going to read any of these so far anyway in 2022. I'll get to all of them in 2023. Now this next one is heavier. So this could be a finished copy of something, and that if that's true, then it could be December that we're talking about, which would be great. That'd be something that I could read. What have we here? It is a finished copy. It's from Tor. Oh, this is a November 15th release. Oh my. Okay, so this is out already. Okay, this is an anthology, a science fiction anthology. How wonderful. This is Africa Risen, edited by Sherry Renee Thomas, Oche Nechovawe, Donald Ekpeki, and Zelda Knight. There's a name I wouldn't want to imagine him at an author signing. Good Lord, his hand would fall off. What have we got here? Do we have a description? Well, a brief description. It's a pretty thing, isn't it, though? Well done. A group of cabinet ministers query a supercomputer containing the minds of the country's ancestors. A child robot on a dying planet uncovers signs of a fragile new life. A descendant of a rain goddess inherits her grandmother's ability to change her appearance and perhaps the world. Created in the legacy of the seminal and award-winning anthology Dark Matter, Africa Risen celebrates the vibrancy, diversity, and reach of African and Afro-diasporic SFF and reaffirms that Africa is not rising, it's already here. Well, I didn't call it that, right? You did. Okay, fantastic. So I wonder, that story, what was it? How did it put it? A child robot on a dying planet uncovers signs of fragile new life. That sounds familiar. I wonder if these are harvested from earlier publications. No, it doesn't look like it. We have copyright years. I wonder if maybe the authors will. Well, let's take a look at one story and see if these are reprinted from other volumes. No, it doesn't look like they are. Interesting. Okay, well, this is really nice. I mean, it's squatter in the hand. I don't know if I can. No, all these things are squatter in the hands. Okay, it's not a full-size hardcover, but it's a science fiction anthology from Tor. That's fantastic. I'll dig right into it, especially as it's out already. So we finally have something that is not only out this year, but that also goes on my TBR for tonight. Oftentimes my mail hauls do that, and this one has been devoid of that. Now we finally have something. It's perfect for New Worlds November. A science fiction anthology, probably a lot of names in there I haven't read. And then there's a box, but there's one other thing. We'll do one thing before we get to the box. This thing was opened off camera, but it's too interesting seeming not to share it with you. This is also a 2023 release, March. This is another thing I don't have to worry about. But this is by Jacqueline Holland, and it is The God of Endings. And it's a vampire novel. I don't have a sheet for it, but I do have the description on the end here. Colette Lessange is a lonely artist who heads an elite fine arts school for children in upstate New York. Her youthful beauty masks the dark truth of her life. She has endured centuries of turmoil and heartache in the wake of her grandfather's long-ago decision to make her an immortal like himself. Now, in 1984, Colette finds her life upended by the arrival of a gifted child from a troubled home, the return of a stalking presence from her past, and her own mysteriously growing hunger. The author holds an MFA from the University of Kansas, and her work has appeared in Hotel America and Big Fiction. She lives in the Twin Cities with her husband and two sons, and I think this is her debut. A big, sumptuous vampire novel, The God of Endings. So I want to include that too. But that's also 2023. And then we'll do the box, which ordinarily would be great, but this thing's light as a feather and thin as a wafer. So it's not going to be a Steve book, no matter what. It's definitely not going to be a Steve book. Maybe another slim volume of poetry. horrifying, but let's give it a try and see. There's an invoice of some kind. Okay, we don't want that, do we? Let's put you over there. Yeah, this is a tiny little thing. Okay, all right, great. This, we don't have a sheet on it. We'll just read it like it's from a bookstore. But this is United Kingdom by Adrian Bingham. A little history. One of these little histories, pocket histories. Let's see, what have we got here? The United Kingdom has been at the heart of global history for centuries as a conqueror, an engine of international trade, and a symbol of modernity. It was the first industrial nation, the center of the world's biggest empire, and the home of an enduring and influential parliamentary democracy. Since 1945, the UK has faced unprecedented challenges as it has come to terms with the loss of great power status, the surrender of its colonial territories, the decline of its staple industries, and the growing pressure threatening to tear apart the union holding together England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. In this book, the author guides readers through the key developments in British post-war history to reveal how the nation is shaped by the legacies and lessons of the past. And the author is a professor of British modern history at the University of Sheffield. So you kind of know what I don't know. I don't have a date on this. I don't have any idea when it's out. It might be out already. But you kind of know what you're getting with something like this, right? It's a part of a series, the Polity Histories. So you kind of know what you're getting. You kind of know that the authors. There are many little series like this, series of little books like this, and that they are not going to be comprehensive. They are going to be sweeping, but hopefully not breezy. And the author, in many times, the author of a series like this is encouraged to inject some personality into the proceedings. So we will see. We will see. It won't take any time. In fact, I don't know the date on this, but I'm going to add this to the list along with Africa Risen to read tonight. It won't take any time at all to do. So that's great. That's a nice varied mail haul, though quite a bit of it is off the radar. This is going to be more and more common. I imagine from this point out, it'll be rare if I get a book that I'm going to read this year. So we have The God of Endings, a vampire novel. We have Africa Risen, Afrofuturism, a collection of Afrofuturism. We have We Were Once a Family, a combination of true crime and social inquiry. We have True Life, I presume the last small poetry collection from Adam Zagajewski. We have Dead Country, which is book one of the Craft Wars trilogy that I think will bring the whole Craft saga to an end. And finally, United Kingdom, a little pocket history of the United Kingdom by a professor right along those lines. So that is the mail plus periodicals, fun periodicals. So there we go. I'm going to take the princess for a walk before we lose the sunlight. That Roz Chastar cartoon was correct. The sunlight is rarer and rarer all the time now, and Frida really doesn't like walking in the dark. I've also noticed, I haven't had occasion to notice in the last 12 months, but in the last day, I've been reminded of something that I kind of sort of noticed last year, but this year, oh boy, it's unavoidable. She does not like the cold. Not at all. Not at all. And she's not dumb. She's as smart as any person that I know. So she knows now that going outside means the cold. So she just doesn't ask. We will see. We will see what happens. I will certainly put the proposition to her. But anyway, that's the mail. I'm going to go see what's at the door, but I'll be back. Thank you, too.